Riverside.
Welcome to Dance Talk with Joanne Carey, where the dance world connects, the conversations inspire, and where we are keeping them real. I'm your host, Joanne Carey, and today I am joined with Lourdes Lopez. I'm delighted to have her on here today. We're going to talk about her career, where she's been and where she's going, everything she's contributed to the ballet world thus far, and I'm just delighted to have her here. So welcome, Lourdes, to Dance Talk.
Oh, Joanne, thank you so much. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here and to talk about my favorite subject in the world, which is dance.
Yes, yes. And I have to say, it's an honor to have you. It really, really is. You've
Thank
contributed
you.
so much. But I'd like to get started how you got started in dance. Tell us how you caught that bug.
Well, I caught it actually very young. I caught it at the age of 6, and I had very odd feet. I had flat-footed. I was slightly pigeon-toed, and for some reason, very, very thin, weak legs. And the orthopedic surgeon or the orthopedic doctor sent me orthopedic boots to wear, and then told my mom that I had to take some kind of extracurriculum activities to strengthen. And so at the age of about 5.5, 6, she put me into a ballet class. And I have to say, I just never left.
Wow.
It just became my world. I found what I would say my very, very happy place. And it right away, even at 6, it fed my soul, my body, my mind. I understood that I had to use all of me to be able to participate in it. And that's really when the love of dance, of wanting to be in the studio, of wanting to be near it, right? I didn't really quite even understand that you could actually be a dancer. Didn't even enter my mind. It was just an environment that I understood fulfilled a need in me, even at such a young age.
Yes. And, thank you for saying that. And I always mention on my podcast too, whenever it comes up that, and the listeners are used to hearing it, but, I had a dance studio for 23 years and
Wow.
yes. And I taught the little ones, and I had that. I understand when you say that love, like I always felt just everything melted away no matter what was going on. And I'm sure you can relate to when you are the person that's in charge, it's a heavy load to carry at times. But the minute I would unlock that door and go into that studio, it all just melted away. And and like you say too, it really does speak to the soul. It speaks to the soul in a way I think no other art form, at least for me, no other art form does. Yes, go ahead.
You articulated it really well, which is the world melts away.
Yeah.
And I think some people may say that's really a bad thing. I happen to think it's a wonderful thing because
Yeah.
it puts you in your sort of this intrinsic state of mind where you are really centered and you're in your body, you're in your mind, you're in your soul, because you have to respond in so many ways, and certainly as I got older, I started to understand that there were steps and there were lessons and there was a right way and a wrong way. And even in those right and wrong ways, I had to put Lourdes into it, right?
Yeah.
I had to find Lourdes. And so it fed all these different parts of my personality. And the more, interestingly enough, the more rigorous the training became for me, because at first when you're a child, it's, you go maybe 2 times a week, 3 times a week for about an hour. But really by the time the orthopedic shoes came off, at the age of 8, and my father, because we were immigrants, so they couldn't, we could not, my parents could not afford these classes, right? I mean, at that time, and I remember my father asking me at the age of 8, he said, shoes are off. There's no reason for you to be taking these ballet classes unless you tell me that you like them. But if you do, you're working hard. This is not for fun anymore. And I remember saying, no, I really want to keep on doing it. I don't want to slow down. And so the more rigorous or intense the training became, the more I loved it, which was
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
odd, right? Because I think there comes a moment, as sometimes in an adolescent's life, where you just say, I really kind of want to choose between school and
Yeah.
dancing, or my social life and dancing. I never did that. And I'm really so thrilled I didn't, because everything I have, and everything I am, I really owe to dance.
Yes, and and I really, as a teacher, I love hearing that, and that you revere your time as a child so well, and it marked a moment for you. I you're like that dream child, that the teacher looks for, or people would ask, people would often ask me, do you ever see those kids? Do you see it in them? And you
Did.
do see it, and it doesn't mean that someone can't come into their to flourish or bloom later and then they come to it, but sometimes you just come across that child, or I should say often you come across that child that you see has and really should pursue it. And you were one of those children, which is just delightful. And you talk about being an immigrant, which I also love about your story. I really do. I think that's such an integral part of your story, for the listeners and for me and for you, obviously. Can you talk a little bit about that? How, if and how that played into you as an artist, or if you even noticed that?
Oh, no, I definitely noticed it. So my family immigrated. My parents came first in
Hmm.
59, right after Castro came into Cuba. And then actually 2 years later, in 60, middle of 60,
Hmm.
my sisters, and my other two sisters and myself, flew up to Miami,
Wow.
from Cuba. And so those early years, obviously in Cuba, I don't remember. I have
Hmm.
photos. I remember correspondence with my grandparents, who were
Hmm.
still behind. But there's no question that I understood we were immigrants, political immigrants,
Hmm.
frankly, my mom would say, in growing up in Miami. I completely remember, issues of money, issues
Hmm.
of wanting to save, issues of having to move to places. It wasn't, we were never, or I must say, thanks to my parents, I was never raised with, you are a victim of this,
Yes.
but
Yes.
this is your reality. This is
Hmm.
your reality, and you're going to rise above that regardless of.
Yes.
And then I always say that the only reason I can say that I danced is that at the age of 11, when it was really prohibitive at this point financially for my parents, I got a scholarship with the Ford Foundation, through the
Oh,
Ford
okay.
Foundation and School of American Ballet. So at the age of 11, I ended up, my classes were paid for in Miami, my shoes were paid for, my point shoes were paid for, my trips to
Hmm.
New York in the summer to study. That ability, and which is why I say out there to your public, whoever's
Hmm.
listening, and supporting scholarships for students, how
Yes.
incredibly important that support is. And thank you if you're doing this, because it was really that financial help that, it's the only reason, because I would have
Yes.
had to stop.
Yeah, and thank you for pointing that out as well. My father worked for Ford, not the Ford Foundation, but the company itself.
Yeah.
Yes, what a small world.
What a small
And
world.
yes, it really is. And he loved working for that company.
Yeah,
And I loved, as I got older and was in the dance world, and I knew what the company was doing, I felt, a sense of pride about that, because the company that he was working for was supporting the arts, and they do. And I like that you point that out for the listeners too, and thanking them, and how important it is for people to sponsor the arts, because you just don't know whose life you're changing or you're going to change.
that's right.
Yeah, and it's so important.
So
So
Joanne, because you asked me of being an immigrant, so in
Mhm.
that change, impacted. So in that respect, the younger years, yes. As an artist later on, there was a real understanding that I had at least that what I brought was a very different perspective to just my whole dancing, just
Mhm.
because I was Latina.
Mhm.
I think that's what's the beauty of the performing arts, that you bring yourself to whatever you do on stage, right? You bring your whole history, you sort of it's in your backpack, and
Yeah.
you start
Yes,
take
yes.
you start taking it out a little bit on
Yeah.
stage, right? But that's what's so wonderful about it.
Yes.
And so it's a place to, I think, to glorify where you came from, not to hide it,
Mhm.
and to shine, and just to show the world that you because of that, not unique, but that you bring a different twist to
Mhm.
what you're doing or how you're thinking or how you listen to that music or what moves you or what doesn't.
Yes. And I think too that artists, especially because we have to know ourselves and dancers have to know ourselves so well, we really know ourselves so well inside and outside, and it frees you up. I think it
Yeah.
frees you up to be available to so much on stage, which is one of the other things I love so much about dance. Can you talk about then how you got to New York City Ballet?
Sure. So I ended up with the scholarship with the School of American Ballet at the age of 11,
Hmm.
that I would come to New York every summer,
Okay,
study
summer.
with them for about six
Hmm.
weeks, and then go back to Miami and do and study year round there.
Hmm.
And at the age of 14, the school asked me to stay full time so they could sort of put the finishing touches
Hmm.
on my training, and I wasn't just coming, taking
Hmm.
a
Sure.
year. And so at 14, I moved. I mean, if you can believe
Wow.
this, 1972, it was the worst crisis,
Wow. Yeah.
economic crisis, in New York, in the state of New York, or specifically New York City. It was just really, the city was
Wow.
not fiscally in a very good place. There were very dark years
Hmm.
for New York. But there I was with my sister,
Hmm.
who was 19 years old, and the two of us were living in New York by
Wow.
ourselves. And I really believe that the only reason my Cuban parents even allowed it is because they understood that the School of American Ballet, through this scholarship, was offering me a life that they wouldn't be able to provide.
Yeah.
Right? They understood that there was an opportunity that Lourdes had, and we
Mhm.
somehow can't get in the way of that.
Yeah.
So at 14, I moved to New York with my
Wow.
sister Terry, who went to NYU.
Mhm.
And a year and a half later, I became an apprentice. Mr. Balanchine asked me to become an apprentice.
Mhm.
And he said to me, he said, "I'm not taking you in until you graduate from school," but I'm 16. So at that point, I'm thinking I've got 2 more years left. So I did a correspondence course so that
Mhm.
I could graduate earlier. And he somehow, I'd done my correspondence, but 6 months later, when I was 16, he took me in,
Wow.
and that's how I got into New York City Ballet. And so I danced with them for 24 years, and I stepped aside. I don't like to say that I retired. I
Mhm.
don't like to say that I retired. I
Yeah.
like to say that I got tired, maybe.
Yeah. I like that.
um,
That's good.
and that so at the age of 39, after dancing with them for 24 years, I decided it was time. Mr. Balanchine had passed away. Jerry
Mhm.
was getting old, and I'd been so fulfilled,
Mhm.
in dancing, dancing at this extraordinary moment in dance, this sort of extraordinary historical moment
Mhm.
in dance with Balanchine and,
Yeah.
and Robbins under the same roof. Really the heyday of dance, the
Yeah.
heyday of ballet. So, and so anyway, so that's how I got into New York City Ballet.
Okay. And that must have been something to be with Balanchine himself and Robbins himself, to be in their under their tutelage, really.
It is. It's something that I have to say, I'm ashamed to say that while it was happening, I don't know that I fully understood the magnitude,
Of course.
right?
Mhm.
Because you get in when you're 16,
Yeah.
you just know them as Jerome Robbins and Mr.
Right.
Balanchine, and you're so used to having them in the theater, and you're used to a core. If I was in a
Mhm.
core, then soloist and principal, you get used to these people around your lives. And it really wasn't until I was older and probably had already stepped away from New York City Ballet,
Mhm.
that I went, "Oh my Lord, I had two geniuses.
Yeah.
I had the two giants in dance of the
Yeah.
20th century underneath one roof every day." I mean,
Yeah.
every day, like in class and rehearsals, crossing them on the hallway,
Right, right.
chatting with them. So. Yeah, so my generation, I feel really blessed.
Yes, and I think about I've interviewed several of the New York City Ballet dancers on the podcast, and all of them, even now, I've interviewed some who were there at the same time, perhaps, but who they just speak so well of the family atmosphere that was
Yeah.
there and how well taken care of. Because I'm always amazed at when I hear, a 14-year-old leaving home and going into the big city. I
Yeah,
don't live far from the city. I'm in New Jersey, but I know who I was at 14, and I
right.
never I never could have. I would have been too afraid. And I'm always so in awe when I hear those stories, and then how well they're taken care of. And really, and it's not to say they're, you don't have issues or this, that, or the other, but just I just hear those really tight, close family um, stories about New York
Yeah,
City Ballet.
there are always in anything that you do, there are always issues, and
Hmm.
you can't make everybody happy, but for the
Right.
most part, I think they really care for those students. They
Yeah.
understand what they go through every day, and much more so these years
Hmm.
now, where and there's also this wonderful understanding that because you're there, training every day, you don't necessarily have to be a dancer. That
Hmm.
you're I feel they're instilling in these young adolescents, male and
Hmm.
female, just a love of dance,
Yes.
and understanding the art form and appreciation for the art form, and
Yes.
possibly even some type of career in the performing
Mhm.
arts or in the visual arts,
Yeah.
that dance fed them at an early age. So
Yes. Yes. And then when was it that you got promoted to principal and what was that like for you?
So I got promoted first to soloist,
Hmm.
at the I forget how, I think I was 22,
Hmm.
and then in 80, I forget. It's so funny, I haven't thought about this. I want to say maybe 85, 86, I got
Hmm.
promoted to principal. And I have to say, I do hear stories of dancers saying, "Oh, it's all I ever wanted to be was a
Hmm.
principal at the New York City Ballet and or ballet theater."
Hmm.
I never ever thought that way or dreamt that.
Hmm.
I really truly it I just wanted to be in it. I just
Yeah.
there was When I wasn't, I was sad,
Hmm.
when it's hard to explain. And so being promoted to soloist and to principal was really sort of not a surprise, but a little bit like, oh, how wonderful. But okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
it wasn't the end all be all for me. It was
Yeah.
really about being in the art form.
And again, I'm happy that you're saying that especially for the listeners. I know I've spoken to some people on and off the podcast who have a career in ballet, and they talk about that too, wanting to be a principal. And I remember specifically to a friend of mine saying, but you're doing it. I said, "You're
Yeah,
doing it, you're living it, and be present to that," and
exactly.
yeah, and I think it helped, I think it helped a little bit because I said to them too, I said, "For me, coming from where I am, my outlook at it, I'm not in that world, I'm in the studio world, I'm in the teacher world." I said, "I
Yeah.
look at what you're doing, and it's amazing. You're in this company, and that's such a big accomplishment." And it kinda I think they never thought of it that way. They never looked at it that
But
way.
I also think, Joanne, that the world that you're in
Mhm.
is critical and highly important because
Mhm.
you're kind of putting a stamp on those
Mhm.
students, right? You're already forming them, you're nurturing them, you're building
Mhm.
them, you're shaping them into tomorrow's artist.
Mhm.
And so I wouldn't discount
Mm.
the importance that teachers bring. It's the next generation. And
Yeah.
unless someone is really, teaching the next generation and
Yeah.
creating and forming shaping the next generation, there's no future in dance.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, that is important. So, and then from New York City Ballet, or actually, first before we even moved there, did you have a favorite role that you danced, or a favorite ballet, or?
No, I've been asked that so
Mhm,
often, and I hate to disappoint.
yeah,
I don't.
mhm,
There's some roles I can say that where I felt a little bit uncomfortable, and it took me a while to get
mhm,
into. But I there wasn't a favorite.
mhm.
I don't know, I loved
Got
I
them
mean,
all.
I certainly I love them all. I think dancing to Tchaikovsky and Stravinsky,
Mhm,
specifically those 2 composers,
mhm,
whenever I had to dance to their ballets, there was something even as opposite as they are,
mhm,
right? Stravinsky and Tchaikovsky, there was something that was very soulful
mm.
that hit me in the right place. But, no, I loved every minute of it.
Yeah. Did your parents get to come up and see you often or as often as
Yes,
they could?
yes, my mom more so because she
Mhm,
was really in it. My dad less so, unfortunately.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They must have been so proud, so proud. And then from New York City Ballet, when you got tired, so I love that. Where did you go from there? What was that next step in your career?
I was 39 and I'd done 24 years at New York City Ballet, and I was already thinking, I was thinking to myself, you're dancing. I was always very pragmatic, even
Mhm,
as a child, right? And I was just thinking to myself, you're dancing well, you don't have any aches or pains.
mhm,
You're still I mean, there was things I couldn't do anymore, but for the most part, I was dancing well. And I thought, I think it's time to really sort of emotionally and
mm,
mentally prepare myself for the next step.
mhm.
And I had this extraordinary opportunity that I was asked by this wonderful non-for-profit organization called Casita Maria, which actually still exists, that works with children in the Bronx,
Mhm.
and to put together an arts program for them. And it
Okay.
was really not a very good arts program, but I
Mhm,
would go every Monday
mhm,
and I would spend a couple of hours with these children. And I would teach them little ballet steps, and I would teach them
mm,
about music and
mhm.
dance, you know, and I ended up getting an award for this, like a little thank you
Mhm.
at a dinner. And at this dinner was the general manager from WNBC in New York, the channel, Channel 4
Yeah.
in New York, who was at the time thinking of putting together a cultural arts sort of on camera cultural arts hour
Mhm.
on Sundays. And so he approached me and he said, "Would you want to help us be both on camera and a producer, and look at the arts in New York?"
Mhm.
And I just thought, this is sort of the world. This is like the universe talking to you, Lourdes.
Mhm.
This is like, you've been given this opportunity. Take it
Mhm.
as a stepping stone. And so I did, and I asked for a leave of absence in for the Saratoga, which is our New York City Ballet
Okay.
summer season. Peter Martins, who was at
Mhm.
the time the artistic director, was very generous and gave it to me. And so I ended up working, sort of doing a summer with Channel 4. And I
Ah.
thought, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going
Mhm.
to take this leap of faith. And I never went back. I just, I
Wow.
called Peter and I
Mhm.
said, I think I'm going to do this.
Mhm.
I don't know where it's going to lead, but I'm sensing that someone put it in front of me,
Mhm.
and I need to take that opportunity. So I did the television work for
Mhm.
almost 3 years. It was not, you just mentioned earlier that dancers know themselves,
Mhm.
right? And you're absolutely right, because even though it was an extraordinary opportunity
Mm.
for me, um, I wasn't really happy.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
I wasn't. It was not a world that I sort of wanted to be in. It was
Mhm.
too fast,
Mhm.
kind of impersonal for me. Um, and there was no cadence, no routine. It was always, every day was murder and mayhem and trying to
Mm.
get these stories in and
Wow.
rush, rush, rush. And it was just, I didn't feel, I felt like I was like Lourdes, I was losing Lourdes.
Mm. Mhm.
And so after about 2.5 years of doing that, an extraordinary person named Francis Petrelli, who's a choreographer in New York and has a small company in New York, Petrelli Dance,
Mhm.
and then taught at Ballet Academy East, this beautiful academy on the East Side. I think he sensed that I was again in transition, and he said,
Mhm.
"How would you like to come and teach at the school at Ballet Academy East?" And I thank Francis for this profusely, because he brought me back into ballet,
Mm. Mhm.
right? And then I believe it or not, I started teaching adult classes,
Wow.
and all of a sudden I was happy.
Yeah.
I was back in my world of the
Yeah.
performing arts,
Yeah.
and that sort of got me back into ballet, and then I ended up staying there at Ballet Academy East and being their director of student placement and
Mhm.
sort of helping put together a syllabus and um, yeah, and so that just sort of moved me into that world.
Yeah. And then how did Miami City Ballet come to pass?
Miami City Ballet came to pass
Mhm.
many, many years later.
Okay.
So what happened is that I was teaching at Ballet Academy
Mhm.
East, and then Barbara Horgan, who was the executor of Mr. Balanchine's trust, of the George
Mhm.
Balanchine Trust, reached out to me and she said, you know, where I'm looking for someone to head the foundation, the George Balanchine Foundation, to be the executive director. And at first, if you can believe it, I said no. Right. I said, no, I can't do it because I don't know anything about it. And then I thought about it and I said, this is a universe talking to you
Again.
again. Right, and you're not listening, and, you know, please understand that. I think the other thing I wanna say, Joanne, is that the great gift that dancers have that I think they may not know, is
Mhm.
that they know how to learn. I mean,
Mhm.
we understand how to learn, right? We
Yeah.
understand what it takes, and so the minute for that, you just you know, you can learn anything, right,
Mhm.
basically.
Yes.
So anyway, so I called her back and I said, "I'll do this." And really my years, I think there were 4 years, 4 or 5 years at the Balanchine Foundation. I again credit Barbara. You know, I've been lucky throughout my life to have these mentors at different
Mhm.
times that allowed me to learn. And it was at the Balanchine Foundation where I learned about governance, proposals,
Oh, okay.
budgets,
Wow.
how to put programs together, what
Mhm.
it meant to fundraise, how to put events together. But it also immersed me in Mr. Balanchine's world as both the artist
Mhm.
and the man.
Mhm.
I had to learn everything about him, you know, all
Okay.
of his works, his years, his life. We got to read letters, the letters
Oh.
that he wrote, the programming that he did.
Mhm.
So I really spent almost 5 years just totally surrounded
Mhm.
by him.
Mhm.
Um, and then, I had some personal issues. My parents were not
Mhm.
well at their
Oh.
age, and I was
Mhm.
traveling down to Miami a lot.
Mhm.
They were divorced at this time
Mhm.
and, in not well health, not,
Mhm.
not doing great. And so, um and I was also pregnant with my
Oh.
second child. So
Mhm.
it became a lot for me. And I said to
Sure.
Barbara, I don't, I can't, I really need to watch. I take care of my parents and my daughter's coming. And,
Mhm.
so I took a little bit of a break and then Chris Wheeldon
Oh.
came calling and he said, I had this idea of starting this ballet company,
Mhm.
a small little troupe.
Mhm.
And would you help me? And that was phenomenal because I had to start that ballet company from scratch.
Wow.
And so
Mhm.
a 501(c)(3),
Yeah.
figure out those forms, talk to the attorneys, figure out contracts, what
Mhm.
contracts meant, how do you build a budget for a ballet company,
Mhm.
how to look at contracts with theaters, workman's comp,
Mhm.
insurance. I mean, everything, the entire back office that we never deal with as dancers. Again, in an environment where I didn't have all the eyes on me, I
Mhm.
had time to learn. And then Chris, we were wonderful. We did that for 3 years, and Chris, rightly so, he said, I don't know that I want the responsibility
Mhm.
of a major ballet company, and he wanted to. He's incredibly creative and
Yeah.
wanted to create, and
Mhm.
having this wasn't allowing him to do that.
Mm.
And so I transitioned Morphosis into a different model where I would invite an artistic director every year
Oh.
to create an 1 hour long work, right?
Oh.
That would then hopefully
Mhm.
tour in different places.
Mhm.
And it was during
Mhm.
those almost, 2, 3 years that Miami City Ballet came calling.
Okay.
That's why I say
Mhm.
there's a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
that took place. And, and at that time, I'd spent 40 years in New York. My
Mhm.
husband, my 2 girls, my whole life, my friends,
Yeah.
my history was
Mhm.
here. but again, I just felt, the universe came knocking, and it was was raised in Miami. I
Mhm.
spoke the language. I felt comfortable in the community, and it was clearly a company, the aesthetic that I knew and loved.
Yeah.
And so I said yes. Well, I put my hat in,
Right,
and
right.
I was among two other candidates
Mhm.
for it, um, and got it.
Yeah, and like I said off camera, that I had interviewed two of the dancers over this past year and a half from the company, and they both spoke so highly of you. Like they lit up.
Oh,
They
thank
actually
you.
lit up. Yes, when they talked about
Thank you.
you. Yes, and so I was so excited to finally get to interview you, and I could see why. I could see why they just
Well, I
really.
was, I was raised in an environment that, while difficult, and that's not to say we didn't have our, where there was tremendous respect by Balanchine and Jerry,
Mhm.
for what we did, right? And Mr. B once in a while in class would say, "Dancers are God's gift
Mhm.
to the world," and you could think about why he said that,
Yeah,
right? But the fact is, he would say it, and so
yeah,
you're somehow trained, or you grow up hearing,
yeah,
that there's I have value,
yeah.
and I think that that's really very important when you're dealing with artists,
Mhm.
who are, dealing with their bodies and their emotions, and they want to get better,
Yeah.
and they want to be fulfilled, and they want to not only get technically better but artistically,
Mhm.
um, blossom and evolve. And so how do you remove all those barriers that they might have mentally or even physically? How to
Mhm.
remove those barriers so they can sort of unleash themselves, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, when you're saying that about him, I take ballet class still, and I take it in
I'm
a.
so jealous.
Yeah, oh, and it's
Oh
hard.
my God, I'm so jealous.
And I found a wonderful teacher, and she has a picture of Balanchine up in the studio. And while I didn't know him, I have friends who dance, there at the
Yeah.
every time, like, I turn and I see him, I think, "Oh, he's watching." You know?
He
And they
probably is.
that's what they say, because every now and again, I take a picture of the picture and I send it to them, and it's
Yes.
just, but even, I joke about it, but there is something, and I think it's probably because of their love for what they've learned from the company and from Balanchine's works, that they have somehow osmosisly passed on to me, that I'm
Gosh, yeah.
curious, right? I'm curious, and I want to know, and I want to learn, because they just speak so highly, and the musicality, the musicality that I think a Balanchine dancer learns or is known for. At least that's my understanding.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, he asked us. I mean, I think you're right. I think there were two things. I think Mr. B was one of those that he walked the talk. Is that what
mhm.
to say? Yeah, he
Yeah,
walked the
yep,
talk.
yep.
So he was tremendous respect for everybody, not just the dancers, but for everybody who allowed
Mhm,
him to put these works on the stage. So, you didn't cross the stage with your street shoes on. He was
mhm.
always on the perimeter,
Yeah,
right? You didn't throw your costume on the floor. You
right,
didn't,
yes.
there were certain you walked in quietly.
Mhm.
There was a respect that was paid for the art form, and for those
Yes,
that practiced the art form.
yes, yes.
And then I think with Mr. Balanchine, the musicality, you're absolutely right. It was his respect for the music,
Mhm.
right? Where the music came first, and we
Yeah,
were there to serve it.
yeah.
And so he was always asking us to be on time,
Mhm,
in time,
mhm, mhm.
right?
Wow, yeah.
So it's, yeah.
Yes. And have you choreographed or do any choreography or.
No, it's so funny. I've never had the itch. I
Mhm.
don't want it. I don't
Yeah.
need it. Um, when I listen to music, and I listen to classical music all the time,
Mhm.
all I hear is the music. I don't
Yeah.
see steps. I don't
Yeah.
see ballets. I don't see dancers. So I don't have whatever it takes
Mhm.
to choreograph. it's not something that I feel a need or a drive
Right,
for.
right. And and when you say that about seeing the steps, and that you only hear the music. I love that you're pointing that out because that's a real thing. Like that's a
Oh
real
yeah,
thing and for people, like some people just hear the music and other people can really, they'll listen to a piece of music and they can see it happening all in their head. You know?
and they should. If
Yes,
you're a
yes,
choreographer and you're listening to music, you should see steps in your head.
yes,
None of that happens with me, so I'm
yeah.
perfectly happy where I am.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love hearing that. And so your years, how many years was it? Is it 12 years you spent with Miami City
No,
Ballet?
13,
Thir
13, 13,
13, lucky 13,
13.
right?
Yeah, lucky
Yes,
13,
lucky
yeah.
13. And so during that time, what kind of growth did you see in the company and in yourself as an artist, an artistic director?
I think at the company I saw a lot of growth, right?
Mhm,
There was the actual growth of the repertory, and I
mhm,
think that if you, I hope that the two things that I'm remembered for, it's not like I'm dead, but whatever, is number one, because I really grew that repertory. I
mhm,
mean, there's I forget how many ballets, but there were quite a few that I both full lengths
mhm,
that I brought to the company, including the Swan Lake, and also from various choreographers as well as commissioned work.
mhm,
And it's funny. I should have looked it up, but it's an impressive number.
mhm,
And the 13 years that I was there, both from established choreographers, emerging
mhm,
choreographers, but also full lengths and
mhm.
commissioned full lengths as well.
Yeah.
So that for me was important because I always understood that as a dancer, the more the more variety, right,
Mhm,
you had to dance choreographers and ballets, the
mhm.
better you got artistically
Yeah, yeah.
because there were experiences that you
Mhm,
were learning from and you were
mhm,
sort of putting in your backpack, right?
mhm,
All these things that you had done. And so I really, even though I loved Balanchine and Robbins' repertory, I really wanted to give them Graham and
mhm.
Lamone and commission work on Rotmansky and Justin
Mhm.
Peck and Chris Wheeldon
Yeah.
at Forsyth. I really wanted them to experience the depth and breadth of
Mhm.
what the art form had to offer.
Yeah.
So that was number one. And then I think number two, I feel that because of that repertory, it elevated the
Mm.
dancers, right?
Mhm.
They just got better at what
Mhm.
they did. They were comfortable. They understood, oh, it's not just balancing that I can do, but I can do all these other
Yeah.
works. And you start to somehow get into your skin a little bit more, and
Mhm.
which is wonderful for a dancer because our careers are so short,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so if you don't do it in that little time,
Right.
time
Right?
is not your friend. Time is not
Yeah.
your friend. I think for me as a leader, as an artistic director, I learned a lot. I mean,
Mhm.
I'd never been an artistic director when I walked into Miami City Ballet.
Mhm.
I think the smartest thing that I did is I walked in and I said, I'm the new person on the block.
Mhm.
I just I just want to help you guys. I just want to make this
Yeah.
company better
Mhm.
and I'm going to need your help. And so I think that that made them feel very comfortable and that I
Mm.
didn't come in and say, "Okay, we're gonna do this, 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 and this, and
Right.
this." And because I was a new person on the
Mhm.
block, I came down from New York.
Yeah.
So I think that helped a lot. And you realize that an artistic director is probably the hardest job. I mean, it was the hardest I've ever worked, and believe me, Joanne, I've worked hard my whole life,
Yeah.
but it was the hardest I'd ever worked because you should be.
Mhm.
And I don't know if how board members or, people or dancers feel about that
Mhm.
but my book, you should be at the helm of
Mhm.
the organization, which means that you have to be responsible for practically almost everything.
Everything.
So
Yeah.
not just artistically, right?
Yeah.
But you have to be responsible for how the dancers look.
Yeah.
You have to be responsible for the students that come out of the
Mhm.
school. You have to be responsible for what that marketing looks like.
Yeah.
Does it really reflect the company? Does it really reflect
Yeah.
the city? Does it really reflect the art form?
Yeah.
You want to be responsible for audiences. What are you programming?
Mhm.
Are the sales what they should be? If they're not, what do you have to do? What are you changing? is everybody dancing?
Mhm.
Who's not dancing? How
Mhm.
are the stage-hands? What is the orchestra? I mean,
Mhm.
it is it is a constant, 24/7 job.
Yeah.
And you learn how to do it. You
Mhm.
you learn how to delegate a little bit, but you also learn that you have to be available.
Yes.
Like a
Yes.
dancer, you have to be
Yes.
available.
Yes, and it reminds me of just like studio ownership too, because you're the person. You're the no matter who's working for you, you are the person that has to, that
You
it
you
comes back to. Yeah,
eh,
yeah.
yeah, that it comes in. So I would always joke and I'd say, if it's going really well,
Mhm.
it's a team, but if it's
Yeah.
going really bad, there's only one person to blame. Right?
Yes, right.
So
That's what they do.
so,
Yes. Yeah.
so yeah, but it was incredibly like my dancing, incredibly fulfilling,
Yeah.
and I think it filled a certain part of me
Mhm.
that I didn't even know that I had in me to do, but loved every single minute of it and loved everything that I did at Miami City Ballet, loved the
Yeah.
dancers, the company,
Yeah.
and
They
loved the
love
community.
you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
They do. And did the universe call, were you feeling that shift again to move on? Like, is there
I
something,
know.
what's happening next? 'Cause and I relate
So
to
I
that. I mean, I really do.
do
Yeah.
you? Oh,
I do, I
thank you,
do.
thank you, thank you.
And I say that, Lourdes, because, and I don't wanna talk too much about me because I want listeners to learn
No,
about
no.
you, but, I know myself too, and I know when I feel a shift happen, and that's how I can describe it.
Yeah,
I feel a shift is what I say. There's a shift happening. And it was myself too when I was deciding, I told you I had this studio for 23 years, but when I was making the decision to move out of studio ownership, hard decision as it was, I
yeah,
felt I felt interiorly I'm meant to. I'm being called somewhere. I don't know where that was, and that, but I felt that it was time. I needed to, as you say, the universe was saying,
yeah,
it's time, Joanne, you know? And
yeah.
so I can relate to that is why I'm saying that to you.
Joanne, I so appreciate you saying that, because to make that decision of to leave
Mhm.
Miami City Ballet, was very, very difficult because
Yeah.
I loved it. I love it.
Mhm.
Not that it's
Yes,
not in the
yes.
past, it's in the present.
Mhm.
I love it, everything about it. But for about a year and a half,
Mhm.
I'd been feeling, that there needed to be a shift
Mhm.
in how we in the performing arts,
Mhm.
right? And how we do business, how the business of ballet. And did it have to always be sort of nail biting?
Mm,
Did it
mhm.
always have to be, like this? Um, and specifically in Miami, where the arts are trying to be, they're so vibrant, right? The
Mhm.
arts of Miami, really, the performing arts and the visual arts are so vibrant in Miami. The community is so vibrant. But there are certain challenges,
Mhm.
and I've been very vocal about this. There are certain challenges that the city has
Mhm.
that we have to look at.
Yeah.
So to make sure that these arts organizations really reach their pinnacle and really
Mhm.
serve both the art form and serve the community that they're in. And I really thought this shift was going to happen during COVID. I
Mhm.
was I
Mhm.
was like, this is it. In fact, it was really interesting. I did this. We were Miami City Ballet was the only company during COVID that was performing
Yes,
almost around the
that's what
world.
the girls told me when they came on. Mhm.
The only one, and it's
Yeah.
because I came up with this idea of a sort of what's it called?
The pods, weren't they like the pods or something?
Not just the pods, but a
Oh.
nutcracker. So we
Oh.
did
Oh.
a multimedia, that's what a
Uh-huh. Okay.
multimedia nutcracker, and I looked at Mr. Balanchine's nutcracker,
Mhm.
and I realized that a lot of the acts like snow, flowers,
Uh-huh.
marzipan, we could in Miami rehearse social distancing because it
Oh,
was no more than 16,
right.
right? So mathematically it worked. So I said, what happens if we create a nutcracker
Mhm.
where the snow and all of second act
Mhm.
is done live and the party scene and all that is done through projections and video.
Oh, wow.
And it aged me at least
I
5
bet.
years,
I'm
right?
sure. Mhm.
Between, the testing and getting
Mhm.
permissions and all of it, but we did it.
Yeah.
And it's an extraordinary outdoor nutcracker, right? And
Mhm.
we had the audience were sitting in their pods, and they're, segregated and
Mhm.
separated,
Yep.
and yet the minute COVID was over, we went
Mhm.
back again into the theater. We
Yeah.
went back again doing what we were doing before.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking a lot about this, and I
Mhm.
just thought, Lourdes, the Miami City Ballet Board of Directors hired you 13 years ago,
Mhm.
and their mandate to me at the
Mhm.
time was, we need you to elevate the company,
Mhm.
and we need you to elevate the school,
Mhm.
right? And I felt I had done that.
Mhm.
I had done that. I handed them both, school and company at a much, much higher level.
Yeah.
Um, and they had grown the way that Miami had grown,
Yeah.
and that maybe this is my last time that the universe calls for the art form for dance. I hope, or maybe not. And so that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
I'm talking to, and it's actually really, I have to say, I'm excited. Talking to a lot of people. A
Mhm.
lot of people are talking to me, and
Good.
I'm understanding that everyone's feeling this, that everyone's
Yes.
feeling, what is that shift?
Yes.
How
Yes.
do we think about it? And
Yeah.
once we think about it, what do we do
Mhm.
strategically? What does the scaffolding look like
Yeah.
to really make that, I mean, think of
Yeah.
a world in especially in Miami, where all the arts organizations are sort of sharing the back office, right? So
Wow.
you're not you're not taking on box
Mhm.
office and HR
Yeah.
and finance and community engagement
Mhm.
and marketing, but you're sharing that
Yeah.
amongst a sort of community. You could probably do that in Miami because it's a smaller city,
Mhm.
probably
Mhm.
much more difficult to do. It's a
Like
smaller ecosystem, arts
yeah.
ecosystem. Probably couldn't do that in New York because it's larger.
Mhm.
But I think that's what I'm saying, that you've got to look at Miami and put something in place for that city.
Yeah.
Um, so
It
that's
no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, no, that was it. So that's what I'm focused on, so here's a message for all
Mhm.
of your viewers and for
Yeah.
the dancers that are listening. I really thought my world was going to close in
Mhm.
when I made the announcement to leave Miami City Ballet,
Mhm.
and the opposite, thank God, has happened.
Yeah.
My world has opened up in a
Yeah.
way that I never ever imagined, of which I'm excited about, and
That is
just
exciting.
it's wonderful, and
Yeah.
to
And hopeful. That gives me hope, you
and
know?
hope.
Yes. It
Thank
does.
you.
Yeah, no, it does, and you said it so well too because, talk about the ship. I've been feeling those same things, and I
Yeah.
think it is the dance world feeling that, and even just the people I interview on the podcast and the people I talk to. There came a point probably in the spring or right coming out of winter into spring where I was like, I feel like there's something that everybody's saying, but they're saying it in a different way. And
Yes.
you just said it. You just articulated it. And I'm going to like replay this back because and keep this little section because I think that's what it is that here we are, here we are and how are we moving forward together? And what's it going to look like? And
Right.
I think that's so important. And even somebody like me doing the podcast, so often, you know, um, publicists will say to me, "The work you're doing is so important. The work you're doing is so important." And I'm like, "I'm just doing my little podcast," And
Mm.
when I step back and I'm like, "Wow, okay, it's giving such a voice to so many." And I'm hearing that through line. I'm really hearing that through line of what the dancers, the artistic directors who are coming on wanting. So that gives me such great hope because it's exciting. It's exciting to be on the cusp of change like that. So yeah.
Well, that's see, I'm not saying that I'm gonna do it. I'm just
No,
saying
no,
that
I understand. Yeah.
I'm loving the fact that I can think about it,
Yeah.
and I'm loving the fact that in my conversations with really all over the United States, in my
Hmm.
conversations, everyone is sort of thinking about, what do we do?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and one thing I will say to you in terms of never ever think that you're not contributing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Mr. Balanchine used to all say we're all blades of grass.
Mm.
It's
Yeah, I
it's
like
every
that.
single one of us. It
Yeah.
is. It's every
Yes.
single one of us contributes to that beautiful, or a
Yeah.
different flower in a garden. We contribute to the whole, right?
Yes.
And you take one thing out, and it's not
Mm.
quite the same.
Yeah. I like that. That's gonna stay with me. Yes. Well, Lourdes, this has just been wonderful. And like I said before we got on camera, I was so happy and thrilled to meet you. And it's an honor. It's my honor to meet you because I've been following you, and every time I would hear Miami City Ballet and your name, I'd perk up and be like, what's she doing? What's she doing? You know, so to get to be able
Yeah.
to speak with you, and then to wish you well in this next journey.
Thank you so much. You're
Yes.
just you've made my day for your support,
Oh,
and for
yes,
your understanding of
yes,
the difficult decision that I had to make.
yes, yes. And really, and I do
Thank you.
support you. You know, and I'm so happy that you have so much that you can look forward to and decide. You know, you can really see where the next part of the universe is calling you. I love
So,
that.
so how about if I do figure it out, I'll come back on and tell you all about it.
Yes, please. Yes, I would love absolutely. I will have the
Okay.
ear. I will have the mic ready. Is there anything before we finish up that you'd like to leave the listeners with? I know we've covered so much, but you're just a delight
No,
to
we
talk
have.
to.
No, it's been wonderful. I didn't even think that I would enjoy myself this much. So I thank you for
Oh,
making my
you're
time on
welcome.
your podcast really so just really so lovely, and so generous. Joanne, I've been blessed. I've been doing this now. It's funny when you add numbers to it. I've been doing it now, serving the art form for 53 years.
Yeah, yeah,
53 years. It's a
yeah.
very, very long time, but it asks a lot of you.
Hmm.
You know that.
Yeah.
It asks the art form, but it also
Yes.
pays you back in spades,
Hmm.
right? And it never has disappointed me.
Yeah.
And so I do want to give it these years that I have.
Hmm.
I want to continue to give to it,
Yes.
and I hope that others feel the same way.
Yes. Well,
It's a
thank you.
beautiful. It's beautiful to be involved in the arts.
It is.
It's
It really is. Yes, it really is. Well, thank you, Lourdes, so much for spending this time with me, and I look forward to having you back to hear all that is going on. And I just thank the listeners for tuning in. This is Dance Talk with Joanne Carey. Follow us, like us, and share, share, share. Thank you, everybody.
Powered by Riverside.